If you're asked to think of some truly great movie sequels, which movies pop into your head? Empire Strikes Back? Terminator 2? Godfather Part 2? Toy Story 3? Aliens? I could go on. No doubt you're thinking about your favourite sequels right now. But one I can't imagine you're thinking about is the straight-to-video sequel to the cult 1990 horror comedy Tremors. The original Tremors is a fantastic movie. It has a bit of everything. Action, comedy, horror, romance, western, drama, tragedy. It's a real underdog of a movie with great performances, big laughs, tension, and fantastic practical effects. It stars up-and-comer Kevin Bacon, Fred Ward, the dad of Family Ties, and country music star Reba McEntire. It has all the ingredients to be a great film. And it is. It's one of my all-time favourites. But did you know that Tremors has not one, not two, not three, not four, that's right, not even four, but 5 sequels, with even a 6th on the way. I don't know if the world asked for 7 Tremors movies, a TV series, and a recent failed attempt to reboot that TV series, but nevertheless, that's exactly what we have. Now, with the odd exception, horror movies aren't known for their quality sequels. Let's face it, Tremors 3 to 6 are a muddled bunch, ranging from not bad right through to exceptionally terrible. But it's the first sequel, Tremors 2 Aftershocks, which bucks the trend of being a shameful horror sequel. In fact, not only is it not a bad sequel to a great film, it's a fantastic sequel to a great film. And I might, just might, have to crown Tremors 2 as being the best sequel of all time. Now, I know you've seen the title of the video already and you knew this was coming, but hold on for a second before you get your pitchforks out and leave a horse's head in my bed. Just hear me out. But what is the criteria that goes into making a great sequel? Let's take a look, shall we? Number 1. Does the original warrant a sequel? Let's think about the films from earlier. Empire Strikes Back? Absolutely. It built a huge world, galaxy, with a plethora of unanswered questions and even left the villain undefeated at the end. Terminator 2? Well, the story was pretty much told, so perhaps the sequel wasn't quite warranted. The Godfather Part 2? There's a ton of stories to tell surrounding the mob, so why not? Toy Story 3? Yeah, people love these characters, so sign me up. Aliens? A fantastic creature design with potential to expand into new settings? Let's go! And the same goes for Tremors. You have a great monster design which you can do anything with. You've written the rules for the world, so you have all the ingredients you need to develop the characters and story. So, tick. Number 2. Do you have anything to add? Basically, all the sequels I listed earlier do, as does Tremors 2. The original film is set in a small town in Nevada, miles from any other form of civilization. Why did they think that was a good place to establish a town? Nobody knows, unless you consider the 4th film, which has perfection as a mining town, but we're not here to discuss that sequel in this video. Something begins to go down, pardon the pun, in perfection, and it soon becomes clear that giant subterranean monsters are eating anything that moves. Literally, because the creatures hunt by sound. The townsfolk try to fight back, but the creatures are smart and they have no choice but to run, resulting in the finale which pits man versus monster. By the film's end, we actually know very little about the monster, which would later officially be known as the Graboid. We know they're subterranean, they've never been seen before, they hunt via sound, they're rather smelly, and they've developed a taste for flocks of sheep and people. But that's it. We don't know where they come from or what they're really capable of. We know they're smart, but why? And how smart can they become? For example, could they do algebra? So yes, I'd say they do have something to add by making a Tremors 2. And what, you may ask, are the things that they add to Tremors 2? To go into that, let's summarise the movie. It picks up several years after the original, and it turns out that Fred Ward's Earl Bassett sank all of his Graboid discovering money into an ostrich farm, and he's a little hard up. So when a rich Mexican oil tycoon hires him to hunt some Graboids, he reluctantly takes the job. Because Kevin Bacon was off cavorting in space and rumour has it not interested in making a sequel to Tremors at all, Earl is given a new partner in the form of overly enthusiastic taxi driver Grady Hoover. And what are his qualifications to go graboid hunting? He drove the rich oil baron to Earl's house in his taxi. Well, I guess it's as good a reason as any. Oh wait, no it isn't, it's completely stupid. So off Earl and Grady go, killing graboids all over Mexico. Where these specific graboids came from? Nobody knows, but thank God they're only localised in this very specific oil field nowhere near civilization. When Earl and Grady realise that they need some reinforcements, they call in another returning character in the form of Michael Gross's gun-toting survivalist Burt Gummer. Together, the three of them go about their graboid killing business as usual. Until they change.
God almighty.
It turns out this isn't even their final form, and each graboid acts as a cocoon for three small creatures known as shriekers. Like their daddy graboid, shriekers are also blind, but instead of being able to hear sound, this time they can see heat, which means they destroy their cars and radio towers, leaving them stuck in the middle of the oil refinery with no chance of escape. That is, until they blow them all the hell up with one of the most over-the-top explosions I've ever seen in a movie. Well done, Earl, Grady and Burt. You've saved the day and even given Earl a girlfriend. An Earl friend, if you will. So, what did the movie have to add? The first and most glaring addition is Christopher Garton as Grady Hoover. It isn't fair to label Grady as Val 2.0 because the characters are different enough. Val was apathetic, a little bitter, but Grady is excitable and enthusiastic, with some naivety thrown in there for good measure. And to be honest, he works well as the yin to Earl's yang in Tremors 2. Whereas Val and Earl were quite similar in character in Tremors 1, Earl and Grady are very different. I'm not going to say that Grady and Earl are a better duo than Val and Earl, but it's close. They also added a new location to throw the graboids into, new weapons to kill them with, new characters to be eaten and fall in love, and most obviously, the new creatures. To introduce the new two-legged creatures, the Shriekers was a fantastic choice. There were basically only two things the filmmakers could have done to keep the monsters in Tremors 2 fresh. Evolve the graboids somehow, or introduce a queen graboid. With the shoestring budget Tremors 2 had, making an even bigger graboid would have been unfeasible, and would have been an even cheesier addition to what is already a pretty cheesy franchise. Changing the graboids, sticking legs on them or something would have been fine, but for a movie trying to keep itself relatively realistic and grounded, it wouldn't have worked. After all, the movie outright gives a backstory to the origins of the graboid by stating that they've always been here, rather than have them as some sort of government bioweapon or alien or something. Not that anybody really thought that these things ever flew a spaceship. Nope, the filmmakers took a look at their own creation and thought, you know what, this thing looks a little bit like a caterpillar. And what do caterpillars do? They go through metamorphosis. So the graboid itself doesn't change, but it acts as a host to its own parasitic offspring, the two-legged heat seekers known as shriekers, and each graboid produces 3 shriekers. Even though Tremors 3 went on to forget this and said they had 6. Seriously lads, did you not go back and watch your own movie before making the 3rd one? The shriekers work as a way for the characters to have to relearn the rules. At the start of the movie they're graboid hunting pros. They've been there, done that, so the movie had to shake things up a bit. And there's nothing worse in a sequel when it either retcons what came before it or flat out ignores what came before it. It's so frustrating when a movie spends 2 hours focusing on a problem or completing an arc, only for the sequel to perform a complete U-turn and either erase what happened or have the characters forget the lessons that they learned. Tremors 2 doesn't do this, but instead shakes things up by introducing a new monster in an organic way. It expands the world whilst remaining true to the original. This both keeps things fresh, honours the world established in the original, and offers a natural way for the characters to find themselves back at square one. This then allows the horror to be ramped up and for the characters to have to find solutions to brand new problems. And this was my number 3 point to what goes towards making a great sequel. Does the film require any retconning or changing of the rules? And the short answer? No. Similarly, point 4 needs to consider whether it remains faithful to the original whilst not remaining too faithful. Some sequels, particularly comedy sequels, have a habit of basically remaking what came before it, with similar narratives, set pieces and story beats. To be honest, even some great sequels do this too. Terminator 2 has a rather similar story to the original, but it changes enough to keep things fresh and provides a fantastic evolution to Sarah Connor's character. The same goes for Tremors 2 and how it changes things up. Up until the reveal of the open graboid at the halfway point, the audience isn't quite sure where the movie's going. Is this it? 90 minutes of graboid hunting? Then nope, little two-legged demons. And even the movie tricks us into thinking that the Shriekers are going to be huge.
Jesus, how big is this thing?
Well played, movie. Well played. Audiences are strange, aren't they? With sequels, we kind of want more of the same, and yet we want things to be different at the same time. And it's a tricky blend for movie makers to get that balance right. Those movies that I listed at the start get it right, just like Tremors 2 does, and why the next installment of those franchises get it so wrong. Terminator 3 has a good ending, but is making the antagonist female really different enough. The Godfather 3 is effectively an epilogue and doesn't add anything new. Return of the Jedi has teddy bears overthrowing a galactic empire. Alien 3 is basically Alien but in a prison. Tremors 3 is basically Tremors 1, but the Shriekers fart fire and fly now and Burt Gummer is the main character. But this was presumably down to necessity rather than choice. To be clear, Burt Gummer is a great character, but he works in Tremors 1 and 2 in the same way that Jack Sparrow works in the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie. He's kooky and crazy and a caricature. He works well in small doses as a supporting character. But when you make him the main character, the magic is lost and you become overexposed to them. You need to focus on the straight man, the everyman, to balance this out, which is what the latter sequels don't provide. Unless you count Jamie Kennedy in 5 and 6, which I definitely don't. Tremors 3 makes Tremors 2 look like even more of a great sequel in hindsight. Yes, it completes the graboid life cycle, the ass blasters as they're cringingly called lay graboid eggs, but it's not enough. The characters don't have to learn anything new other than to occasionally luck up. And the horrible visual effects don't help, with holes magically appearing for the graboids. Tremors 2 had some CGI, and whilst it's not perfect, it's used sparingly, and only where practical effects weren't possible, and definitely no close-ups. And Tremors 2 isn't perfect by any means. There are two things it overlooks when it comes to the graboids. Apparently they don't smell anymore, which is something you'd expect a newcomer to reference, and they've seemingly lost the use of their tentacle-like tongues which were so prevalent in the original. Just 1 or 2 appearances would have made sense, but then again the movie was made for 5 Donald Trump-sized small loans, so certain things had to give, like a theatrical release. But what it does have is a great script written by filmmakers who clearly loved their own creation and knew how to use their small budget to their advantage. They understood what made the original work so well and played to their strengths, keeping things firmly faithful to the original whilst knowing exactly when it was time to shake things up. And there we are, my rationale for why I think Tremors 2 Aftershocks is the greatest sequel of all time. So, move over, you lot. There's a new king in town. So long as it doesn't start farting fire. Thanks very much for watching all. Please let me know if you agree in the comments or if you think I'm talking a load of old twaddle. Please absolutely destroy that like button, subscribe to the channel and check out the Patreon. And I'll see you next time.